Maybe the hoodie was a mistake.
Oh.
I was really cold, and now I'm like, I want to get really hot.
Fair.
Because of the lights.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. I might be fine. Hi, Lady Aoife. Did you send me a gift? Because I was going to respond to you today, because I finally... I have noticed that Discord is not sending me my DMs. Got a crucial message from my cousin that I missed several days ago. And also, I got... Oh, I didn't bring it in here. I never bring it in here. It was a really cool package. That too, because I really should have responded to my cousin way earlier. And I didn't. Because I didn't know it was... I had been DM'd. I don't know what Discord thinks they're netting by changing all of their settings every so often and then just not getting notified about things. Anyway, I received a package. It was a really cool package. Thank you. Also, everybody say hi to Toby, our best boy.
Hi, Toby.
Yeah. Hi, Toby, honorary cat. This is my book. These two are mine. I don't know why, but... They're on the book club stack. It did. I meant to bring it in here.
Where is it?
But I was running late. One of them is in my car, and the other one... and the other one is on the counter. Yeah, in the kitchen.
I figured that's where it would be.
Yes. Do you know what it is?
I'm pretty sure
Did
I do.
someone tell you?
Someone may have told me, but like,
yeah, well,
I'm not a narc. So I ain't telling you who told me.
Of course, they're in two separate places. They have two separate functions. Anyway, thank you very much for the Nightvale package. For anybody who listens to Welcome to Nightvale, I got a Koshek plushie and a Nightvale tumbler. And they were both really cute, and I forgot to bring them in here. Regardless, thank you very much. I love them. I will display them next time. I will have them in here. You also have the Koshek... No, twinsies. I put mine... He guards my car. He guards my car. He's my buddy. Because I'm in my car so much. I should put him in Cat Mountain. Technically, he should be in Cat Mountain. But he's so cute, and he wraps around my emergency brake like a little hug. So I can't quite bring myself to bring him in. He's so cute there. He attack. He's cute. He's hanging from my ceiling. I saw there's like a little, what's it called? I can't think of the proper word, but like, there's like a little ring. It's not a ring. That's the thing, is it's not a ring. There's a word, a grommet. No. Anyway, you can hang him so that he's the proper distance from the ground, canonically, if you wanted to. So that was really cute. I was like, oh, they put a little grommet in there so that you could hang him at the appropriate distance off the ground if you would like to. I was so tempted to be like, he's going in the bathroom, hanging him from the ceiling. And I was like, no, I can't. I can't. The cats would tear him down. So he's in my car on the emergency brake. It's really cute. He's going in the soup. Yeah. Can't risk that. So he's in my car. I should bring him in and put him on Cat Mountain. I don't know. I will put pictures in the Discord when I get him in there. I just wanted to thank Lady Aoife first for the lovely package. Thank you very much. And if you looked at the title, you'll know today is the last day of Book 5. So this is the end of Conference of Birds, and I will now start opening the suggestion box again if you would like to throw your choice. And we don't need no stinking titles. We know what this live is. But today is the finale of Conference of Birds. We've been through almost the entirety of this book, and it's probably going to be a little bit shorter of a live today, just because there's no more book. There's no more book. Book end. Book gone. So we will be starting the last book in the series next week. We've done 2 whole series in this book club. And I'm going to open up the suggestion box once we start the last book to go ahead, and if you want me to read your favorite book, or if there's something you've heard good things about that you think would be a good choice for the book club, let's keep it kind of audience friendly for everyone involved. In terms of TikTok guidelines, the stuff like that, no heavy triggers, no super, like, I love The Troop, but I'm never going to read it on here for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
So let's keep it kind of appropriate, but if you want to throw a book into the suggestion box, I'm going to put a space in the Discord for that, if you would like to vote. And then once we kind of narrow down the suggestions, I'll vet it, read it while we're going through this last one in the Peregrine series, and I very might choose that one next. I also have a couple suggestions if you guys are interested in those. We'll get to that later, but primarily, if you're new here and you don't know what's going on, this is a book club. I read every week. I don't sit here and talk. And we've been going through Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and we've been reading through the 5th volume in that series, The Conference of Birds, and we are at the very end. So if you don't know what's going on, you don't know any of the characters, and you're the type to jump in head first in the 5th book of a series, what's wrong with you? No, I'm not judging. Anyway, but if you'd like to know what's going on, you could also go to my YouTube to listen to the rest of the series. They all are assorted by book. I also heavily encourage you to check out the author Ransom Riggs. It's a really great series. We're all having a fun time. Everyone is having fun. And so we're going to go ahead and jump in to chapter 13, unless we have any other small talk we need to get to. Hear me out, we pick a series, but we read it backwards. No, we're not doing that.
I hate that.
Unless it's a series that's supposed to be read backwards. Some series are like that. I have read one where it was like, here's the end, and then we're going to tell you everything that happened leading up to the end. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that structure, but we're not reading it out of order unless we're supposed to read it out of order. Because I don't think that'll be as fun as we think it is. That's like a bit. If you really want to do that, we'll read a book and then you can play it backwards. How's that? When I upload it. I'll make a special backward cut just for you.
Who said do it backwards, Jen?
Yes.
Of course.
Dad's over here like, who said that? Jen? Oh, that tracks. Anyway, so who is ready for the finale? You just re-upload Johannes backwards and say nothing. That does seem like a good troll bit that I'm not gonna do, but I appreciate the enthusiasm too. All right, now just to catch you all up, in case you weren't here last time, we went to the Dead Risers loop in Hopewell and devised a scheme to go get Fiona back, which totally worked. We have Fiona. Fiona, unfortunately, is lacking a crucial part. They cut out her tongue, so she can't talk now, and they got what they wanted, so they really didn't need her anymore anyway. However, they did capture a few whites, so that's good. So, presumably, they also got the Alpha Skull, which is a crucial bit needed for Call's resurrection. Prophecy is pretty vague, but it's very doomsday. You get it. You get it. Anyway, and now we're all caught up. So we'll start chapter 13. We brought Fiona back to Devil's Acre and straight to Raphael the Bone Mender to begin her recovery. Hugh never left her side. Neither did the rest of us. We crowded her room, talking to her, telling her stories about all she'd missed, and just hanging out in the hope it might make her feel like she was home again. Even though the home she'd left behind, Miss Peregrine's, was gone forever. We thought some feigned cheer might buoy her spirits. Enoch got the first smile out of her, telling a story about falling into the ditch and coming out with one of the wrinkled old bridgeheads having bitten hold of his trouser leg. And pretty soon our fake cheer began to feel real. She was alive. Fiona was alive and back among us. Yes, she was hurt. And yes, Murnau was out there somewhere with Fiona's tongue and the Alpha Skull and all the other ingredients on Bentham's infernal resurrection shopping list. But he hadn't gotten Miss Peregrine, and he never would. We told ourselves we had won. We had crushed the whites, killed or captured all but one of them, and their hollows. I had brought the last one back to the acre, returning it to the place where I had originally tamed it, the old Grimbear enclosure in the Bloodsport ring. Only Murnau remained, so far as we knew, and if it really was important that Fiona's tongue be freshly harvested, well, the clock was certainly ticking on that. It seemed we had beaten them. The whites who'd been captured in the Dead Risers loop had a glum, defeated air about them that I'd never seen in whites before. Nor and I caught sight of them slouching through the acre in chains the day after we returned, while they were being transferred out of an interrogation room in Bentham's house. I had every intention of keeping my distance, but when Nor saw them, she jolted and said, "Oh my God!" And suddenly she was pulling me toward them. A home guard soldier stopped us before we could get too close. "It's them," Nor said, her voice shaking a little, and she raised her arm and pointed at two of the whites, a man and a woman who looked oddly familiar. "Those were the people watching me at school." I stopped breathing for a moment as it clicked into place. They were the vice principals, the ones who'd stalked Nor and who we had seen again just before the attack on her hiding place in the unfinished building. The ones H had thought were normal, some secret society bent on controlling us. "Holy shit," I murmured and took her hand. Both of them turned their heads to look at us, and their eyes flashed with hatred. Then they were led through a doorway and were gone. Later, Miss Peregrine confirmed it. They had never been in Imbrin custody before. They'd been in America for years, unaccounted for on the Imbrin's most wanted list. They had fooled H. They'd tricked Abe, too, for years, into thinking some other group was responsible for many of the whites' crimes. I swore to myself I'd never let a white trick me again. The Imbrans, once they had spent a little time settling us back into the acre, returned to Marrowbone to oversee the end of negotiations. Lamoth and Parkins had actually come to Hopewell in person with their fighters, and after what they'd witnessed, appeared to be very much on Team Imbrin. Leo had already been persuaded to make bygones bygones, Miss Peregrine had said, and now there were only a few contractual formalities to work out before a solid peace agreement could be reached and signed. Want this? Back pillow. Okay. We continued to work on finding V, though our quest didn't carry the same urgency it once had. Our life and safety no longer seemed to depend on it, and I had begun to wonder about H's motivations, whether sending us to find her was more about his mistrust of Imbrins than V being the key to something crucial. I couldn't know. What I did know was that finding V was important to Nor. She was the closest thing Nor had to a mother, a last link to a lost childhood. Millard, Nor, and I gave the search most of our time, and the others helped whenever they could. Millard seemed to think we were getting close. Another small memory of childhood came back to Nor one night over dinner, something about a strip-mined mountaintop, and it led Millard to rule out Ohio as a possible location of V's loop. That only left Pennsylvania to search. It felt like it was only a matter of time. Nor and I spent pretty much every waking moment together. Emma, for her part, was mostly ignoring us. She wasn't mean about it, but she was going through something, and it wasn't anything I could help her with. So I gave her space and hoped that we really could be friends again soon. All seemed well. Great, even. Nor and I were hunched over ribeye sandwiches at the Shrunken Head, having just come off a marathon session with Millard in the maps room. We'd been scouring a pile of new atlases the Americans lent us, looking for anything that resembled the topography of H's map fragment. But after 5 hours of work, the pile was only a little shorter than when we'd started. Even Millard's usually inexhaustible enthusiasm for cartography was beginning to flag. I took a bite of my sandwich, winced, then spat a small metal pellet into my hand.
Sorry about that, a passing waiter said. Sometimes they don't get all the buckshot out of the carcass.
I pushed the plate away. How about a coffee instead? He went off to bring me one, and I noticed Nor staring out the clouded window at the bridgehead outside. It was barking rude things at passerby. Hey, I said quietly. What's on your mind? We're getting so close to finding her now. Like we're just a step away. It's exciting, I said. Then, isn't it? Yes, she said slowly. But meeting her again means talking to her, means facing all this stuff and digging up all these feelings I buried a long time ago. You don't feel ready. Maybe? She sighed. I don't know. You know what I think? She looked up. I think maybe you could use a little break. My coffee arrived with a sudden smack on the wooden table, startling me for a second. Maybe we could both use some time off. We went through so much, then dove right back into the work again, and you haven't had time to process any of it. None of us have. But Nor seemed almost afraid to be hopeful. Maybe just a tiny break? I'd actually been thinking it would be nice to go back to New York to pick up some of my stuff.
Clothes, shoes, my backpack. She shrugged.
That's a great idea,
I said. I mean, if I'm really gonna, live here. Let's go, I said. Really? She hesitated. We could be back in a couple of hours or something, right? Use the Panlupticon? Yep. I scooted back in my chair. Easy. No comment to that comment. We got there in less than an hour. We took the Panlupticon door to New York City. At this point, Nora and I had pretty much free rein to roam the Panlupticon at will, and then caught the subway to Brooklyn. The train rattled along underground. Nora sat beside me, our hands mingled in a stack on her lap as we talked about plans for the future. She wanted to finish school. She talked about commuting from Devil's Acre to Bard College in New York, where she'd been accepted into an accelerated student arts program for high school kids. She loved art history and music, but had a knack for engineering and science too. She was torn. I told her she might have a future in both. It seemed like we had beaten the prophecy, circumvented the worst outcome, and something like a future was now possible. For her and for us. Maybe I could go to that program with you, I said. If everything settles down, I'd like to get my degree too. Have a foot in the peculiar world and the normal one, she said. Exactly. All my other peculiar friends had given up on having anything to do with the normal world a long time ago. I had nearly given up on it too. Until now, I hadn't realized how much I had been mourning the loss of it. Maybe together, Nora and I could figure out what it meant to be both normal and peculiar, and to be just 17 among century-old friends, and to be someone whose birth was prophesied and someone who was the grandson of a legend and, as awkward as it made me feel sometimes, someone who was becoming a bit of a legend himself. It was unmapped territory for us both. We got off at Norris Station, climbed the stairs into daylight, and walked 10 blocks along leafy streets, holding hands. For a few minutes, it felt like nothing in the world was wrong and never had been. Eventually, we stopped, and Nora said, "This is it." There was no nostalgia or homesickness in her voice. She let herself in with a code. We went up 3 flights of stairs to her foster parents' place. They weren't home, but her foster sister, Amber, was, watching TV in a darkened room. Amber barely looked up when Nor came in. "Thought you ran away," she said. "Who's that?" "I'm Jacob," I said. Amber looked me over with one eyebrow raised. Nor had gone down the hall. "Where's my stuff?" she called from one of the rooms. "The closet," Amber shouted. "I took over your part of the room after you didn't come back. Dad says I can keep it." We found Nor's clothes, shoes, some books, and her backpack piled in a wrinkly mess in the closet. She began to pull them out. Then she stood up quickly, looking at something in her hand. A postcard. "Where'd this come from?" she shouted down the hall. "The postcard." The mail?" Nora turned the card over, then over again. Her hand was shaking. "What is it?" I said. She handed it to me. On the front was a picture of a tornado. Below it was a town name. Waynaka, Pennsylvania. On the back were Nora's name and address, and below that, in neat cursive, "Miss you, honey. Sorry it's been so long. I heard the news, and I'm so proud of you. This was the last address I had for you. I hope this note reaches you. and that you'll come visit. It was signed, Love, Mama V. And there was an address. My God, Nora whispered. I looked at her, awestruck. She heard about what you did. She knows you know about her. So you think it's real? You think it's really her? I blinked at Nor. That the postcard might not be real hadn't even occurred to me. But then we'd both been through a lot these last few weeks. I understood how Nor was feeling. It had become hard to trust anything. But I hated that instinct. I was tired of it. I wanted to remember how to be excited about things again. I wanted to remember what it was like to feel hopeful. So I sighed. Yeah, I think it's real. I mean, I think she's telling you, in so many words, that it's safe for her to see you now. That things weren't safe before, but now, because of what we've done, it's possible to reconnect. Yeah, Nor said softly. You okay? I asked. I heard her sniff. She wouldn't look at me. She tried to smile. I think maybe I've just gotten really good at doubting the good things in my life. I understand, I said quietly, and then I pulled her close. She rested her head against my chest. Finally, she pulled back. Her eyes were red but dry. So, Winnetka, Pennsylvania, huh? We typed the address into my phone. It was only a few hours away. Nora gazed at me with wonder and barely restrained joy. Want to go visit my mom? And here's the postcard. Winnetka, Pennsylvania was 2.5 hours away, to be exact, and to get there, Nora took, without exactly asking, her foster sister's car. She had taken Nora's space without asking, so the scales seemed balanced, and anyway, we'd bring it back. Probably. We might have gone back to Devil's Acre first and told our friends. In another situation, I would have brought a few of them along. We probably should have, but it would have cost us an hour of travel there and another back, and my friends had other concerns now. Fiona, primarily, who had only just come back to us, and, in a way, this journey felt like ours. Mine and Nor's. The quest to find V had started with just her and me, and it felt right that it should end that way. There wasn't much to Winnetka. We drove down a flat, straight country road, past fields and farms and lonely houses at the ends of long lanes. We passed some hunters in camouflage, pulled over to the side of the road, strapping a dead deer to the hood of a truck. The stump of a giant tree split long ago by lightning. The place seemed a little bit lost, a little bit damned. Nor had been staring into the rearview mirror for nearly a minute. I'm getting the weirdest feeling of deja vu, she said. Like you've been here before. She looked uneasy. Yeah, but I don't think I have. We came into a low-density commercial zone, a dollar store, a payday loan place. It was a regular, if rusted-out version of small-town America. We left the main road and made a few turns, and then finally we came to the address, an old brick warehouse. A sign out front read, "Big Mo's You Store It." It stood against the banks of a muddy river, which made me think it had once been a mill. Now it was just a parking space for people's extra crap. I scanned the building's exterior as we pulled into its almost empty parking lot, making a quick mental map. One main entrance, a big roll door for loading and unloading trucks, old leaded factory windows in rows rising up 5 floors, and a roof I couldn't see onto, with no fire escape or obvious quick way down. "If you were a loop entrance in an old storage warehouse," I said, "where would you be?" "The roof?" Noor said, her eyes locked on it. I parked and killed the engine. I started to get out, then noticed Noor wasn't moving. She was playing with the light between her knees. I turned in my seat to face her. "You okay?" "For 11 years, this woman's lived with me as a memory. A painful, good memory. But the minute we walk in there, she becomes real." She let the light slip through her hands and looked at me. "What if she turns out to be horrible? Or crazy? Or nothing like I remember?" "Then we'll leave. And forget about her. But if you'd rather not go, there's no reason we have to. Maybe just knowing she's there is enough." Noor stared up at the building for a few seconds. "No," she said, and grabbed the door and pushed it open. "I have to see her. I want her to tell me what happened that night." "The night she pretended to die." I got out too. "You know what happened," I said gently across the car's roof. "I want to hear it from her." I did just recently get this. Anyway. In a small, fluorescent lit room, a bearded hipster in a lumberjack shirt sat on a computer. "Help you?" He looked high. I said, "What's the quickest way to the roof?" "The roof's off limits." "Okay," Noor said, "but how do we get up there?" You don't. It's off limits." He leaned back in his chair, squared his shoulders. "Have you got a unit here?" 404, I said, making up a random number, and I nudged Noor toward the inner door. The hipster called after us, but he didn't stop, and he didn't bother chasing. We entered the Store It part of Big Mo's You Store It, a once vast mill converted into a claustrophobic warren of wire cages. Long rows of them receded away into gloom, broken at intervals by squares of pale window light. There was chill in the air and a thin, sour smell. "It's like a tomb in here," Noor whispered, and I thought I heard her teeth chatter. Her voice, even at a low register, echoed like a penny dropped into a well. Coming here, I'd imagined something more welcoming waiting for us. Perhaps a nice, shade-dappled glen in a forest. Just once, something like the portals in kids' books. But this place felt oppressive and unfriendly. As I still had to remind myself now and then, this was usually the point of loop entrances, to keep people away. Our eyes having adjusted slightly, we began looking for some stairs or an elevator. The instant we took a step, a bank of fluorescent lights above us flickered to life. "What the?" Noor said, and we both jumped. I looked up at the buzzing lights, then down the alley of storage units. There were hundreds more lights. all dark. Motion control sensor, I said. I took another few steps forward. Another bank of lights popped on above me. It felt weirdly like someone was watching us. We hurried along the rows of storage units, the lights popping on above us as we ran, until we came to a stairwell and started climbing. The stairs topped out at the 4th floor. The roof was on 5. There had to be another staircase somewhere on the 4th floor, so we went to find it. This floor looked just like the first. Long alleys of cages bursting with junk, cardboard file boxes stacked in towers, furniture covered in sheets, heaps of stuff in garbage bags, old sports equipment. Nor held up her arm to slow me, then put a finger to her lips and cocked her head. We stopped and listened. For a moment, there was only silence. But then a loud bang came from somewhere up ahead and got my heart going, followed by the sound of metal scraping against concrete. Then we heard someone grunting and swearing. We walked on until we came to the right aisle and paused to look. In a pool of blue light surrounded by dark, an old man was trying to push a hulking beast of an oven into one of the cages, and he was struggling, wheezing for breath. One of his arms was wrapped in a cast. Nora shook her head. I know we shouldn't stop, but... The old man bent to give it another try. He planted his good shoulder and 2 hands against the oven and pushed, but his feet slid out from under him and he fell, catching himself with both his good arm and his hurt one. He rolled onto one side and started to moan. His back was to us. He hadn't looked at us once. Nora sighed. We have a minute. I can't just watch. We started down the aisle toward him. The lights clicked on overhead as we went, drawing an arrow toward the old man. He sat up and, hearing us, swiveled quickly around. Oh, he said, startled. You look like you could use a hand, Nor said. I could. Bless you. God bless you. He spoke in a southern twang and wore a few weeks' worth of a gray beard. His eyes were filmy and bloodshot. The cast on his arm was dirty, and his brown Carhartt work jacket and pants were stained with oil or grease. I gave him my hand and helped him up, and while he muttered a litany of thank yous, we started shoving his old oven the rest of the way into the storage cage, which was jam-packed with a random assortment of heavy appliances, camping gear and open cartons of dried food. In one of the only open spaces left, I saw a rolled-up sleeping bag, and I realized he was probably living here. I'm in salvage, see? He said, rambling as the oven scraped along. And when deadbeats, we got a lot of deadbeats in this town who don't pay their debt. When they don't pay and they lose their units, the manager, he and me got an understanding. Manager lets me cherry pick some of the good stuff because I know where I can sell it to get the highest price, and it ain't Craigslist. With his good arm, he directed us toward an open space at the back of the surprisingly large unit, which we were now completely inside. Right there in the corner, that's it. We'd just about gotten the oven wedged into the tight corner when I saw a different kind of space farther back. An unnatural blackness in the shape of a door. I stopped shoving and gaped it in. He was staring back now with a new acuity, and something in his face had sharpened. You can go in if you want, he said, but it ain't a very good idea. What are you talking about? Nor said sharply. The man nodded toward the darkness, his voice lowered. That loop door there. Our jaws dropped. What do you know about it? Nor said. Why, I keep watch out here for Miss V. You know V? I said, astounded. Oh, sure. Haven't seen her in years, though. She don't come out no more. Tell you the truth, I think she could use a little company. We're going in, said Nor. It's a free country, but I should warn you, it's a tad dangerous. Why? I said. Weather can be rough, he said blandly. You seem like smart kids, though. I'm sure you'll be just fine. We certainly weren't turning back now, so we started toward it. Are you coming? Nor said to him over her shoulder. He grinned at us crookedly. Hell no. Yeah, like this seems the kind of thing to report back on. I was telling Dad before. I was like, feels like something you should report back about. Get reinforcements before you just go.
What are they, 7?
No, you don't go to a second location without telling somebody your location. If you go to a second location with anybody, drop your location, pin it, send it to somebody. Somebody should know where you're at. Anyway, chapter 14. I was falling, weightless, enveloped in a velvet void. I tried to count the seconds, but kept losing them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. I dreamed I was standing in a thicket of Florida woods at night in a summer downpour. I dreamed I saw my grandfather in his bathrobe holding a flashlight, and I tried to shout at him to stop. Go back home, you're in danger. But my words came out in hollow speak, and when he heard me, he looked frightened, then angry, and he lunged at me with a letter opener held like a knife. I ran, shouting, Stop! It's Jacob! It's your grandson! I dreamed he said, Stop! You must stop! And plunged the letter opener into my shoulder. Pain exploded through me, and then I was being shot into the air in a wide, lazy arc. Bright sky and brown earth traded places as I spun, then landed in a splattering, cushioning pile of mud. I tried to sit up, but was too dizzy to get it right on the first attempt and fell back into the puddle. Something heavy landed beside me with a great wet splat, and a wave of mud splashed over me. It was Nor. We were disoriented and covered in filth, but seemed to be miraculously unhurt. How far had we fallen? And where from? I'd never seen a loop entrance like this. I scanned our surroundings. Shed, barn, grain silo, fields. The sky was an ominous, sallow gray. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the long whistle of a train. How do we get out again? Nor said, looking around. Hopefully V can tell us. If we find her, I thought. If the rest of this loop was as strange as its front door, it might not be so easy. We helped each other up and began to scrape the mud off. Neither of us wanted to meet Nor's sort of mom like this. Then Nor stopped suddenly and tilted her head to one side. What's that? It was the same train I'd heard before, but it had grown louder now, with an added layer of sound that reminded me of a ship's sails ripping in a gale. My gaze wandered upward. High above us and directly overhead was a small, dark object. It was growing steadily larger. "What is that?" Noor said. "It kind of looks like a house," I replied. The sight was so surreal that it took a moment to process that it was, in fact, a house. And then I was shouting it. "House! House! House!" while we both tried to escape the deep, sticky mud. I grabbed Noor and yanked her forward. We stumbled and Noor pulled me up, a two-link human chain grasping for traction. And then she shoved me, and my feet touched dry ground, and we were both running, the sound of the train and the ripping sails deafening. The earth itself seemed to crack, and a sea of mud washed over us from behind. At the same instant, something punched me hard in the back, and I was thrown forward. On the ground behind me lay a dented doorknob. I scrambled to my feet again, then over to where Noor was standing. "Are you all right?" She was, and I was, and then she was staring at the house, unblinking, with a haunted look on her face. "I think I used to live there," she said. "In that house, when I was really little." It was a half-collapsed ruin, of course, despite somehow having landed right side up. I didn't know what to say. She closed her eyes and started humming the song she used to calm her nerves, and I hugged her. I think we were both in shock. After a moment, another sound broke us out of it. It was like God clearing his throat, a long, deep rumble coming from the heavy cloud bank above. Behind us, reaching slowly down from the heavens like the trunk of some giant elephant, was the funnel of a tornado. "Big wind," I said numbly. "Two of them," said Noor, pointing in the opposite direction. Two. There were two tornadoes. They were quiet except for a faraway thrum, a low, almost subconscious droning that made everything around us, even the ground under our feet, vibrate in harmony. A moment later, both tornadoes touched the ground, one and then the other, like thunderclaps in stereo. But unlike thunder, the sound they made never faded. It rolled on and on. They weren't on top of us, but we were pinned between them, and they seemed to be converging. There was nowhere to run, certainly not into Noor's old destroyed house. We could only go forward. But which way? Frantic, I began pulling her away. "We have to find—" I was interrupted by a fire hydrant dropping from the sky through the roof of the house, which sent up a fountain of shingles and wood splinters. The impact seemed to snap her out of whatever trance-like state she'd been in. We have to find shelter," Noor said. "A deep cellar, or a bank vault, maybe." But there was no real shelter here where we'd landed. Only flat fields and grain silos, through which tornadoes had already passed and might pass again. Their tracks marked by uprooted trees, wind-dug ditches cutting through rows of corn, and the occasional old truck flipped onto its roof. We dashed out into the road. Not far away we could see a little downtown. We ran toward it. Rain began to fall, hard and pelting. "Can you remember anything else about this place?" I said. "Something that might help." "I've been racking my brain," she said, "but it's all hazy." I turned to look over my shoulder. One of the tornadoes was directly behind us, maybe a half-mile back, zigzagging back and forth across the road. I had never seen one so closely or clearly before, not even on video, and the sight stole my breath. A tight, twisting spiral of cloud connecting ground to sky like a mile-high umbilical cord, and where it touched earth was a terrifying vortex of dirt and debris wider than a football field. And it was headed straight for us, chasing us. I screamed it's coming, but Noor had seen already, or felt it, the waves of negative pressure crackling the air. We broke into sprints, pumping our limbs until my legs burned and my legs ached, and we reached the little town. What was left of it, anyway. We stopped, gasping for breath, at a square ringed by flattened buildings. Only a few remained. A flock of featherless chickens ran past us, strangely naked and clucking in baffled terror. On the other side of town, the second tornado was roaring, trying to decide whether to smash us, to merge with its sister, or to rage alone. We searched for shelter. I led us inside one of the houses on the square. Then Noor chose another, but we abandoned each when we realized neither had a cellar. We had only gotten 100 feet from the second house when it began to rattle violently, and then its roof lifted off, tumbled into the side yard, and exploded into 1,000,000 pieces. We're gonna die. The words flashed through my head before I could quash them. We raced for cover, sprinting back through the square and diving behind a dirt embankment where we covered our heads as a flurry of wind-borne shrapnel tore through the air above us. I lay there, shuddering beside Noor, waiting for the furious gust to slacken. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry, Jacob. I never should have brought you here." "You couldn't have known." My hand found hers on the wet ground. "We're in this together, remember?" There was another massive boom somewhere close, and a plume of fire licked the sky. Gas station, I thought. She began to hum again, and then the humming turned to singing, and for the first time I heard the words to Noor's song. 1, 2, 3, there goes Miss McGee. Just then an old lady, the first person we'd seen, dashed down the road in front of us, carrying a cat. A little shiver went through me. What were the chances? "Keep singing," I said. 2, 3, 4, run into the store. The old lady ran up the steps of a grocery, threw open the door, and disappeared inside. I looked at Noor. She looked back at me, her eyes wide. "What's the next line?" 3, 4, 5. Get there alive." I grabbed her hand. "We have to go in the store," she said. We jumped up and ran across the street like soldiers darting across enemy lines and bashed through the swinging doors. Miss McGee, or whoever she was, had ducked behind the cash register. 2 men wearing grocer's aprons peeked out from a door in the floor, maybe a basement stockroom. Noor was singing again. 4, 5, 6, cinnamon sticks," I shouted to the grocers. "Where do you keep your cinnamon?" "Aisle 9, one of them shouted back. He was in shock, his answer automatic. "Get over here," the other grocer cried, waving us toward the cellar door. "You're not—" The rest of his words were lost beneath an apocalyptic roar. Noor and I dove to the floor. A metallic scream filled the air, and I squeezed my eyes shut and prayed for a quick death. And then it got lighter and louder simultaneously, which could only mean the roof had peeled away. After that, I thought I heard the walls go, and then it went quiet, which probably meant I was dead. Except I wasn't. I uncovered my head and opened my eyes again. Neither of us was. We were fine. The entire spice aisle was fine. Untouched, in fact. The delicate little spice jars all in place. The rest of the store, however, including Miss McGee, had been vacuumed into the sky. "Your song," I said wonderingly, my voice tiny beneath the ringing in my ears. "Mama taught it to me, and now I know why." She got shakily to her feet. "It's how I'm supposed to find her." The first tornado had moved down the street, but another was coming. The sound it made was like a monster chewing glass. "What's the next line?" I said. Noor started humming to herself, trying to remember. She frowned. "I always forget this part." I waited in silent torment as Noor stared at the floor and sang quietly, the raging tornado drawing closer and closer. It wasn't Noor's fault. V hadn't mentioned that lives might depend on perfectly memorizing this nursery rhyme. This doesn't make sense, I kept thinking. Why was this loop so deadly? And why would V invite Noor here without properly warning her about it? "It's a tad bit dangerous," the man watching the entrance had said. "Idiot." Noor had started the song over again. 4, 5, 6, cinnamon sticks. She bobbed her head, mumbling to herself, then clapped her hands and shouted, 5, 6, 7, money comes from heaven. She turned to me suddenly, grabbed my arms. "Money! The bank vault!" We ran out into the street. There was a man dressed like a farmer running in the other direction. "Where's the bank?" I shouted at him. He pointed to the street behind us. "Round that corner." He looked at us like we'd lost our sanity, then was about to say something else when an object struck him. He stumbled back and looked down, stunned, to see a stalk of corn sticking out of his chest. As he crumpled and fell, we ran for the bank. Turning the corner, we could see it had already been destroyed. Fire spouted from its windows, and the walls and roof had been breached. So much for Noor's song. But we had nowhere else to run, and no choice but to keep going. So we kept on down the street, feet pounding pavement in the vain hope that some refuge would appear. We'd only just passed the destroyed bank when we saw a bizarre vision ahead. A flurry of what looked, at first glance, like snow. No, it was paper. No, it was money. Money from the breached bank vault, whirling down from the sky in a blizzard. 5, 6, 7, Noor chanted between frantic breaths. "Money comes from heaven. 6, 7, 8, stand still and wait." She put on an extra burst of speed and shot ahead of me. "This way," she shouted. "Come with me." She veered into the shower of bills, and when we came to the middle of it, we stopped and stood there and waited. A tornado was coming right toward us, but we waited. Every structure near us had either been destroyed or was in the process of being torn apart. But we had now learned to trust the song, so we stood in the heart of the snowstorm of money, the bills whipping around us, sticking to our muddy bodies, while the awful, awesome spectacle of the roaring tornado bore down on us. And then, just before it reached the road where we were standing, it stopped, seemed almost to stare us down for a moment, then turned and tore through a shed. The roar faded. We had been spared once more. "Next verse," I said, shouting through the sound of a million flurrying bills. 7, 8, 9, by the whistling pine, Noor recalled. Not far away, towering over the roofs of the houses on the next street, we could see a tall tree waving in the gale. We ran toward it, cutting through a backyard littered with flopping fish, no doubt sucked up from some distant lake, and past a horse whinnying at us from atop the roof of a barn. The pine stood in a wooded lot at the intersection of two streets, among smaller trees that had snapped and blown away, stumps of jagged wood where their trunks had once been. The one tree that remained was old and enormous, and had a trunk 20 feet thick, and the wind whipping through its branches was making a high, keening sound, a whistle, almost a song, its pitch shifting with every change in the wind. We stared into the upper canopy of the massive pine, looking for a treehouse, maybe, or a hidden door, the entrance to V's bunker we were both praying to find. But there was nothing. "Now what?" I shouted. "Do we climb it?" Nor shook her head, brow furrowed, thinking. Then she sang, 8, 9, 10, 3 wise men. None of us knew what to make of that, and there wasn't much time to figure it out. Could it be a code? A metaphor for something? Every other line in the song had been a reference to some actual person or place. But wise men? There was no one around. Every looped normal seemed to be either dead or hiding. Another tree crashed down in the middle of the street, not 30 feet from us, spraying us with sharp pine needles and tiny crystalline hailstones. We covered our faces. When I dared to look again, I saw a street sign I hadn't noticed before, quivering in the gale. Wise Man Street. Nor cackled with hysterical laughter and clapped her hands, and we ran toward it together. The house numbers were painted on the sidewalk and started at 20, but there was only one house left standing on Wise Man Street. Number 3. It was a cute but humble bungalow, 1 story, robin's egg blue paint. Nothing special, except that it had completely escaped harm. There was a clothesline straining against its poles and laundry flapping in the wind. The mailbox shuddered but stood straight. The weather vane on the roof spun but was still attached. And there on the porch, sitting in a rocking chair, was a woman who could only have been V. She had short gray hair now, but I saw the same sharp-featured face I remembered from her photo. She wore an old red cardigan sweater over a dress and sat with a shotgun laid across her lap, rocking gently, watching the tornado like other people watch sunsets. When she saw us, she stiffened and jumped to her feet. And then she raised the shotgun. "Don't shoot!" I screamed, frozen in place as we waved our hands in the air. "We come in peace!" V stalked toward us, eyes ablaze. "Who are you? What do you want?" she bellowed. "It's me," Nora said. The gun whipped toward her. V looked surprised, then baffled and sad for a moment as she searched Nora's face, and then her caterpillar eyebrows mashed together in a furious scowl. "What the hell are you doing here?" she shouted. Not the welcome we'd been expecting. "I came to see you," Nora said, and I could tell she was working hard to keep her voice calm and level. "Yes," V replied impatiently. "But how did you find me?" Nora gave me a wide-eyed look. "Can you believe this?" "We followed the address," she said. "From your postcard," I added. V seemed confused. Then the blood drained from her face. "I never sent any postcard." Nora looked at V like she couldn't possibly have heard that right. "What?" I said. V's eyes bounced between us. "Were you followed?" Just then the clothesline snapped off its poles and went flying over our heads, and we all ducked to avoid being decapitated. Come inside before we all get killed, V said, and then she tucked the shotgun under her arm and took each of us by the arm. We ran inside. V slammed the front door and pulled a series of heavy deadbolts, then began darting between windows, pulling down heavy metal shutters. We almost got killed 5 times already, I said. Why do you live in such a deadly place? It looked like a cross between an old lady's house and a weaponry museum. Leaning in a rack beside a table set with teacups were 3 scoped rifles. Hung over the arm of a green velvet sofa was an ammunition belt. It reminded me of my grandfather's house. Because I looped it that way, she said, and pulled on a dangling cord to make a periscope rattle down from the ceiling. I designed it to be impenetrable. It repeats the deadliest event in the history of this region on the half hour. She peered into the periscope. Can either of you shoot a gun? I nearly fell over. Wait, you looped it? She pulled her face away from the periscope and looked at me. I'm an Embrin. And of course you can shoot. You're Abe Portman's grandson. She turned to glance at Nor, who seemed almost too stunned to speak, and her expression softened. We were never supposed to see each other again, dear. Not that I didn't wish it 1,000 times. But it's not impenetrable, Nor said. This song... I was standing next to her, but she seemed, in that moment, very alone. V let her hands fall away from the periscope. After all these years, I never thought you'd remember it. Of course I did, said Nor. Her voice was barely audible above the wind outside. You did want me to come. V smiled and crossed the room to Nor and me, and I thought she might reach out and put her arms around Nor, but she stopped short. A sentimental mistake. Her smile began to waver. I knew I shouldn't have let myself grow attached to you. But you were such a dear, sweet child. I knew that eventually, for your own sake, I would have to let you go. But I suppose I wanted to believe that maybe, one day, you and I could... V looked down, took a long breath. I never should have taught it to you. And it was meant to be used only in the gravest emergencies. She looked up again, and now she looked afraid. But only if I reached out to you first. But you didn't. No. I don't understand, I said. If you didn't send that postcard, who did? That would be me, said a peppy voice from behind us, and we spun to see a man standing by the door to the kitchen. It was the old man from the storage unit. His cast was gone, and he had a gun pointed at us. I sent several, actually, to a few different addresses. I knew the post is a little old-fashioned these days, but so is Velia here. Murnau? V snarled. He let out a dry laugh, then untwisted his posture, broadened his shoulders, and flashed a familiar, arrogant grin. And suddenly I saw him, clear as day, through the beard and makeup. Murnau. He had a leather bag slung across his back. Did I interrupt a family reunion? My timing is, as always, impeccable. He took a step toward us. His gun and most of his focus was trained on V. All right, sweets. Where do you want to do this? Kitchen floor? Bathtub? Save the rug? Not that any of that is going to be here in a few hours. Leave her alone, Nor said. If you've got some issue with her, you can settle it with me. No thanks. You served your purpose already.
But if you try anything tricky, I'll make sure your mom suffers more than she needs to. His eyes cut to me. And your boyfriend. I know what you're after, I said, and there's nothing for you here. He ignored me. Do you know we've been trying to get into this loop for years? Wasted a lot of good men, but we're never able to crack it. Until today, he flashed a grin at Nor. You forgot to lock your back door, Velia. And then he shot her. Before the shot had stopped ringing, before V had even hit the floor, before I could react at all, Nor ran at Murnau. She had no weapon, no light stored up inside her, just her 2 hands and the power of her hatred. But he was ready. He stepped deftly to the side, drew back his muscled arm, and slammed her to the floor. And then I was diving toward him, ready to tear him apart. But in the time it took to close the distance between us, he had snatched another gun from his belt, raised it, and fired. It made a soft pop, and I felt a sharp pain in my side. And as I tumbled to the floor, I heard a second one. He had shot Noor. I couldn't get up. I grabbed my side. Something was sticking out. A dart. I felt searing pain as darkness clouded my sight. Then, in a moment, or a minute, I don't know how long it was, I felt rain on my face. We had been dragged outside. I forced my eyes open, willed my vision to focus. I was handcuffed to the porch railing, and next to me, Murnau was cuffing Noor. She was limp, her eyes half closed. V lay face down in the yard, out in the grass. The sky churned. I managed to slur out a few words. You're not gonna kill us? Unfortunately, I won't have the pleasure. Orders from the boss. He finished cuffing Noor, then glanced over his shoulder at V. He wants you to watch, and then feel what it's like to have a loop collapse on you. It's not gonna work, I said slowly. You don't even have the right ingredients. He looked like he just remembered something. Oh, that's right. You children still think... He laughed, and then I heard a thwip, and he winced and bent over. The shaft of an arrow was sticking out of his thigh. He growled and whipped around to face V. She was propped up on one elbow, covered in blood, holding a compact crossbow that she had somehow concealed. She fired again. This arrow went into Murnau's shoulder. He grunted, raised his gun, and shot her again. She dropped the crossbow and collapsed. Noor moaned. Murnau turned back to look at us. As I was saying, he grimaced but seemed barely distracted by the pain. Bentham thought he could fool us with a bad translation, but we saw right through his ruse. The Apocryphon's original text doesn't mention a mother of birds. There isn't any such thing. What it calls for is the still beating heart of the mother of storms. He tossed away his revolver, unslung the leather bag from his shoulder, and drew out a long knife. Speaking of which, I'd better get to work. He hobbled off toward where V lay in the grass. The sky was a chaos of funneling clouds. I tried to shout, to call Noor's name, to turn my head and look at her, but I could not. My vision tunneled, the world spun. When the blackness briefly peeled away, I saw Murnau hunched over V's prone form. His arm was pistoning up and down, then darkness again, until I felt something slapping my face. Leaves, grit,
and I heard what sounded like a freight train. With great effort, I lifted my eyelids. The tornado was devouring a giant tree across the street, and its branches whipped as if possessed by some devil. Its roots were coming up out of the ground like arms, and Murnau was walking straight toward it. He had the bag slung over his shoulder, and something small and dark gripped in his hand, which was raised in triumph. Just before he was swept away, he stopped and turned back to look at us, and I swear I saw him grinning. And then he was lifted up by the wind, and he was gone. I may have blacked out again. What I remembered next was a bank of vibrant yellow clouds coalescing toward the funnel of the tornado, gathering into a conical spike that pointed up into the sky. The tree had been ripped whole from the ground, and it hovered there, spinning gently 100 feet from the ground in the center of the funnel. There was a low moaning that grew louder and louder until it threatened to break my head. It sounded almost like human speech slowed down. A voice inside the wind speaking unintelligible vowels that rose and fell in long waves. The yellow spike of cloud thickened and merged with the levitating tree, and then the clouds around it took a shape, holographically vivid. It was a face I knew. And then its mouth opened, and in a slow, rolling thunderclap, the sky uttered my name. Epilogue. The little girl had been deeply asleep when Pensivus began whispering to her. She did not know how long it had been, but by the time her eyes blinked open, her head was full of nightmares. She knew just what she had to do. The little girl rose to her feet and crossed the room. Pensivus kept whispering. He almost never stopped whispering. She carried him dangling from one hand. She carried him everywhere. She had only used the telephone once before, but Pensivus told her just what to do. He always told her what to do. She pulled a chair out from the corner and placed it below the telephone, then climbed it so she could reach the receiver. She made 6 calls, one after the other. Her task was not even complete when the first imprint alighted on the sill of her open window. When each call was answered, she said only one thing. "He is back." And there's your last picture of the book. And that's the end of book 5. So we're all doing great. Fiona's back and everyone's happy. That tracks. Well, we had a whole other book. You knew it was going to be bad. Yeah, I don't know why you thought that. I'm really sorry that you thought that there were only 5 and we were nearing the end and everything was going to be totally chill. Maybe I should have been more clear. I'll correct that in the future. I'll make a note to go ahead and recap how many books are in the series. No, it's not. We have one more.
We have one more, and then we're done with the series, which is why I'm going to go ahead and take suggestions now. Maybe I misled it with my announcement at the beginning of this live. What I meant is I'm going to start taking suggestions so I have time to vet them with this next book, because we're going to be reading a book while I'm vetting the... Anyway, you get it. Yeah, no, I was doing that so that I would have time to vet it. Because I'm still going to read it to make sure you're not going to sneak in a... You know what I mean? Because if I haven't read it before, and we start reading it, and I trust you guys, and then I get some whack-ass shit in the middle of a 3-book-long series, we're never going to recover it.
Also, Winnetka, Pennsylvania does not exist anymore because of an actual triple tornado in 1985. Yeah.
Well, now we know when the tornadoes happened, 1985.
Yeah, it flattened
So
the
that was
entirety
an
of the
actual
town.
tragedy that happened. It was built. Most of the stuff in his books can be like vetted in terms of like stuff that happened. I mean, obviously the peculiar stuff is all made up, but like
In that particular one, 8 people died. But that outbreak across the state, 69 people died.
Oh, the cinnamon was fine. The cinnamon made it.
Yeah, that's all that matters. The spices are what matters.
The spice aisle.
That's what matters.
See, the tornadoes, it was really just the gods being upset that the white people in Winnetka, Pennsylvania didn't season their food. Is what that was about.
That's fair.
They left it there.
That's
as a
fucking
sign.
fair.
No.
That part of Pennsylvania, though, that's fair.
Oh, man.
That's northwestern Pennsylvania, but close to Erie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's why when you showed the first picture, I'm like, am I spelling this right? And I got real close to the book on you.
Yeah, I was like, you kept like leaning forward, and I'm like, Dad's really invested this week. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, Dad's just really into this one.
Well, yeah. And I'm like, this has gotta be...
Normally, Dad's just over here listening. He's on his phone. And like
I'm
this
on my
time, he's
phone
like
or doing
leaning
something
closer
else.
and closer to me, and he's like, what? And I'm like, Dad's really into it this week. I don't know what's going on.
The ADHD is calm today. That's what it is.
Dad was in it to win it. I was like, what is he leaning so
Doing
close to
my
me for?
best.
This is so crazy. And we got cat facts, and then we can go ahead and lean into the video game stream if that's what y'all want to do. I know it's a little bit shorter this week, but I knew we weren't going to have so much time.
Yeah.
Because it's the end of the book. If nothing else, you can say you read a book.
Heck yeah.
So, mark that off on your Goodreads, your story graph. You get credit. I say you get credit because I read it to you. So technically you read it. And we don't gatekeep reading here. So you can claim credit for it. I'm telling you now. Gonna go mark it off. Yeah, you should. Check mark. You did it. And we're gonna go right into cat facts for anybody who wants to do that, who wants to hear about a Carillion bobtail. And then see you learn a little bit. We have a little bit of fun, and we read a whole book, and then I tell you a little bit, and you learn a little bit. This is an educational channel, you guys. So somehow that makes it more worth it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're sitting here and you're like, all I've done is sit here for 2 hours, you learned something, if nothing else. Did you know what a Carillion bobtail was before this
2 things
live?
today.
No, you did not. No. I mean, we get in-depth talks as well as advice. Well, I give advice? For what? What have I given advice on?
Coffee.
Oh, I have. Okay, that's true. I was like, whoa, wait, don't take my advice. I don't know what advice you're talking about.
I'm gonna say coffee.
Don't take my advice.
But
On
they're
anything but coffee.
They're learning 2 things today.
Learning 2 things. Oh, yeah, 1985, Winnetka, Pennsylvania. There was a tragedy involving 3 tornadoes. You can look that up. That's a really fun fact.
And 2 Carillion bobtails. Anyway, since that was kind of a low note to end on, cats is my reference for that. That's how I deal with unfortunate things. Anyway, the Carillion bobtail. The Carillion bobtail is known by many slightly different names in English, probably because of its origins. This fluffy, stocky bobtail cat originated on a chain of islands that begins in Russian territory and ends near Japan's Hokkaido Island. Translating from either language involves transliteration, meaning turning a different alphabet or symbol into its best English sound-alike. And because of its isolated home in the far northeast of Russia, the breed has only recently come to the world's attention. Some groups consider it too new to compete, and others, like Cat Fanciers Association, don't recognize it at all yet. Carillion bobtail cats seem related to Japanese bobtail cats, and with their shared small area of the world, this makes sense. But the Carillion bobtail has much warmer fur, thicker and stockier limbs, and an overall disposition for playing and hunting outdoors in a more rugged way than the urban pest hunting of the Japanese bobtail. The Carillion bobtail resembled a wild bobcat or lynx, almost as much as it resembles its fellow domestic cat breeds, including fluffy jowls and lynx tufts on its ears. Much like Charles Darwin's studies in the Galapagos Islands, the Carillion bobtail and other island breeds show how an isolated place can lead to more rapid mutation and new characteristics. Living in a small place with only other cats of the same kind is almost a naturally occurring breeding program. Like the water-resistant chartreuse, the Carillion bobtail cat loves to fish. The most distinctive Carillion bobtails are longhairs, but their home islands are full of short-hair examples as well, and some organizations recognize these as separate breeds. And look at this fluffy guy.
Oh my goodness.
Look at this fluffy guy.
Oh my goodness.
Such a short little fluffy tail.
I love it.
This is the most adorable guy.
I need 3 of them.
Little boy.
I need 3 of them.
So fluffy. What a fluffy guy. Yeah. So now you learned 2 things. And you got a cute cat picture out of it. And as always, go look up fun cat breeds. And if you find any good Carillion bobtail videos, send me one. Because they're so cute. They're so cute looking, and I didn't get time to look it up like I normally do before the live. I normally try and look it up. But the past couple of weeks, me and Dad have been doing extra shit, and I've been trying to style a wig. It's been a whole mess. I had to go out and find caulk today, guys. For the wig. Why? Why do I have to have such specific ideas about stuff and I can't settle for anything else, and then I just end up going to 3 separate places and looking for clear silicone caulk that I can put in hair? Why would I do that? To make life more complicated for myself, obviously. I can't just do the simple thing. I gotta be like, nope, it wasn't. But I guarantee you, a lot of places, I definitely looked like I was trying to rob a Michael's. Now, that wasn't the goal. I paid for it. I was fully prepared to pay for it the entire time. But the thing is I was trying to find it in a Michael's, because I thought that, like, I would be able to find, like, silicone gel, like, for molds, you know what I mean? Craft store. So I'm like walking around this fucking Michael's. I walked around the entire store twice. And just like walking around, looking suspicious as hell in my weird hoodie, looking like a Sith Lord, just a hood up. And I was like, I'm gonna get kicked out of this Michael's. Finally gave up. Couldn't find it in a Walmart because they changed everything in the Walmart, and I got confused, and I could barely find the hairspray I needed, also for the wig.
So I was just like, I'm gonna go ahead and leave. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not having a fun time. I'm gonna leave. And then finally, I was like, I can't find this shit anywhere. And I went to Myers as a last-ditch effort. Made sense. Why can't they make stuff make sense in the Walmart? Every time I get grips of where stuff is in the Walmart, they change how the Walmart's laid out. Completely. Meijer makes sense. In between, like...
Back left-hand corner.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. That makes total sense. It's by the automotive. It makes sense to put it near, in between, like,
Automotive
home
and
and pharmacy, house, you know, whatever, the house shit. And then and car maintenance. And I'm like, that makes sense. Where it would be. Anyway, I finally found it, and that's Target pickup is your best friend. Well, my best friend's Nodi, and they haven't contacted me in several weeks, so that's not true. They did send me a snap not too long ago. It was just unrelated. They were like, "Look, bones," and then that was it, and then didn't talk to me.
Oh my god.
That's how Nodi and me communicate.
That's
it's
fair.
just like every once in a while of, "Can you feed my cats?" interlaced with, "Look, bones," and then once every 3 to 6 business months, they'll be like, "Do you want to hang out?" Which is fine, but it was just funny. I don't really go to Target that much. Because it's by that stupid intersection. I don't like that one.
That's fair.
Because the people coming out of the Barnes & Noble don't know how to leave the Barnes & Noble.
Uh-huh. That's why I never go to the light. I go to the other entrances.
I know. You go to the other one, you dip in there. Anyway, as soon as you figure out the layout of Walmart, they change it. Exactly. And it's so frustrating.
It's frustrating when I worked there.
Do you think my storm ambiance worked well for the chapter? I don't know how loud it is because I didn't do a sound test before this either. Well, also, like, no, they just don't know how to leave the Barnes & Noble stoplight. Like, the stoplight in front of the Barnes & Noble, they don't know, like, okay, the thing is that...
It's one lane.
It's one lane. And they don't know how to use their turn signals. So, anytime someone's leaving the Barnes & Noble, they're probably going to turn right. Because if you go straight through to an intersection that leads to the mall, which is hell to go through. I don't know why you would go straight unless you were going to the mall. Like, it's just nonsensical to do otherwise. So you're just like, okay. And then they don't use the turn signal. So then they're all turning right, but you think that maybe this will be the one time they're going straight. So then you sit there the entire time. You totally could have turned left, which would have been great if any of them had at least had the decency to use their fucking turn signal. Anyway, it's a whole thing. So then you sit there watching 5 people turn right, and you're like, why can't you put a turn signal on so I can also turn left? You're just gatekeeping turning. If you don't use your turn signal and you prevent someone who also could have turned, you're gatekeeping turning. Anyway, don't gatekeep turning for people in traffic. If this is you, consider this a formal call out. Use your turn signals. They need blinker fluid. Thank you, Lady Eva, for that astute observation.
I mean, yeah. Always gotta make sure you top that off before you get in.
This isn't Florida. This isn't Florida. Look, Florida is a different country at this point. Don't use your turn signal in Florida.
Speaking of Florida, one of these freaking
Florida
sips...
doesn't count. It's not a real place.
There's one of these sips for the circle named Florida Man.
No, why would they call it that? Also, why would
it's-
they make that? What does it taste like?
I don't know.
Sweat and alligator piss?
That's the next one
What do
I'm
you
gonna
mean?
try.
Sewer water? Sorry, we are really
Meth.
slamming Florida
Meth.
tonight.
It tastes like meth.
I'm sorry. Dan was talking about. He got it. Let me see it so I can show him what we're talking about. If you've seen this is not an advertisement. I'm not sponsored. This isn't even mine. This is Dad's. You know the circle bottles that have the flavored cap things that go. He was like, they have one called Florida Man, and I was like, why would they call it that? What's the flavor? Sweat and alligator piss? Sewage? And I'm sorry, we're really ripping into Florida. That was a joke. That was a joke. If you live in Florida,
I'm sorry for you.
I am sorry. It's not to be a clear assessment of all people who live in Florida. Florida Man is a singular experience of some people, a minority generally in Florida. We just hear about the minority more because it's more entertaining and it's going to get more attraction. That's not to say everybody in Florida is Florida Man. There's some people in Florida that I'm sure are nice, reasonable people who don't read books backwards. I've never met them, but I'm sure there are. This is just a big joke for Swiftblood, because I know Swiftblood will have a fun time with it. Swiftblood, no, I represent Florida and Texas. Swiftblood, you're so much fun. Anyway, we're going to move on to the game stream. I have no idea what I'm playing. I didn't prep anything before I did this. It was me eating a gigantic sandwich. That was me 10 minutes before this was supposed to happen. Just letting you all know. I forgot to prep everything. We might go night fishing again. I don't know. I like dredge. I'm a perfectly normal being. Sure. If that's what you need to go to sleep at night, sure, Swiftblood. We can recognize you as an honorary human, and that's fine. If you want that. We all know the truth. But we can all respect your species identity. If you want to identify as human, we will absolutely respect you. Everybody, Swiftblood's human now. And we're all... It's going to be a fun time. What are you making that face for?
Because I'm still not going to trust them. Telling me to let the little people
Florida
into my
Man
home.
flavor is orange citrus? God damn it. Cut me a week from now drinking Circular Florida Man on stream. Oh man, that actually sounds delicious and I'm upset about it.
Well, we'll find out next week.
I'll see you next week at 8 Central for another episode
of What the Fuck
Circle
is this?
Florida Man legit tastes like chemicals. You had to find it. My son wanted to try it. Okay, I was like, we gotta know what this is.
I want to know what chemicals, because it probably tastes like an illicit substance.
Oh no. Anyway, I don't want to know how they did market research for that.
I don't know. I don't want to know either. Probably the original Gatorade flavor. Because it was made for the University of Florida.
Yeah, hold on. I'm just trying to remember if I've ever had an orange Gatorade.
I have not.
I don't think I have. I've only ever had blue. I like to lock in on a specific thing.
Wait,
if I like
but
the
which
flavor
blue?
of something...
Light blue?
Light blue.
Light blue? Okay.
Light blue.
Because there's light blue, blue, and then there's like dark blue, almost purple.
No, light blue.
Okay.
Yellow is the OG Gatorade. Gross. Anyway.
Ew. Ew. That would taste like gator piss.
Dad. Okay. Thank you for validating my experience. as a light blue Gatorade consumer. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had... I'll lock into a specific thing. If I like the flavor of something, good enough, like, if I've decided, I'll try new stuff, but most of the time when I find the thing that I like from the place, I get that every single time. Unless I like everything, and in which case I rotate.
Like Ichiban.
Yeah, like Ichiban. I like everything, so I go through it. Each individual one in a row, like a weirdo.
That's fair.
Like a fucking weirdo. Is this a good time to mention I'm drinking yellow Gatorade because I ran out of blue? If you were drinking yellow Gatorade right now, you know what? You get points. If you verify that you've done that, if you take a picture and that's happening, you win today. I don't know what you won, but you win. But you have to verify that you've done it. That you were doing it. And I don't mean like in an hour. I mean in like less than 10. You gotta... Because if that actually happened, but while this was being set up, and it's not a bit, you've won today. Just by sheer coincidence. Are you shitting me? Dad just showed me proof. I was like, that's amazing that lined up like that. You know how many times I talk about Gatorade as a general topic of discussion? Fucking never. It's probably the first time in 5 years I've mentioned Gatorade at all. You know how well that had to work out for you to do that? I don't know what you've won, but you've won something. You've won the day. The winner today, Swiftblood. Just because that was a stellar coincidence, and also I ripped on Florida a lot today. I don't normally sit here and rip on states because people think that we don't wear shoes. So we do. Now we're not now because we're in the house, and you take them off in the house. But the point is, Dad's wearing shoes.
They're slides. They're like half a shoe.
Yeah, it's like half a shoe. It's not like really a shoe, but it's there. The spirit is there. But we have shoes in Kentucky.
Proof.
If we're going by state generalizations, we don't come out looking that great either. But I apologize if anybody thinks I actually meant all of that stuff about Florida. I didn't. Those are all jokes. Because we have the best sport in a Floridian in this chat right now. And they're a great sport. Thank you very much, Swiftblood, for never taking this to... Are the Crocs with the big toe poked through? No, they're slides. They're slides. They're slides. Dad's wearing slides.
And I don't own Crocs with holes in them because that doesn't protect you from oil at work.
Exactly, and not all Texans wear cowboy hats and boots. That's a stereotype. And as much fun as they are to joke about that, we do not make assumptions based on your state in this chat. But thank you for being such a good sport about it, because it's really just fun to knock up the Florida man bit, because it's so fun. It's so fun. Come on.
I was going to tell you that earlier, but like, no, I needed to see you go off on a tangent about Florida man.
You needed to be like, we needed this.
Yeah. That was a heavy end to the book.
Swiftblood's like, you say that, I'm a walking stereotype wherever I go. Oh, man.
I mean, the way I normally dress on my days off, I'm a walking dad stereotype, so it's fine.
It's okay, I walked into Walmart looking like a Sith Lord today for no reason.
Fuck yeah.
Just hood up. People were moving for me.
And it's like 85 degrees out, too.
Oh, yeah. People were moving out of my way. I didn't have to try to get anywhere in the Walmart. People were just like, go down. No. Like, there was a woman who straight up did the kid where she grabbed her daughter's hand, and I'm like, what am I going to want with your kids? What am I gonna do?
Sacrifice them, I guess.
I'm looking for got-to-be glued hairspray and cock.
You could have texted me. I have a tube of silicone at the house.
God, I just went fucking everywhere looking for that. It's over on the shelf over there.
Yeah. I have a tube of it at the house. And the gun.
Oh my god, I'm so mad. Why didn't I fucking...
I'm Dad. I have all this random bullshit, and I know exactly where to get it, too.
Twice around an entire Michael's in every single aisle. Walked all the way... Anyway, it took much longer than I wanted it to, or needed it to get stuff. So much so that I didn't have any time to work on the actual wig I was getting it for. I went to Disney once and workers asked if I was Disney... Darth Maul. That's hilarious. You came from work. That's fun. See, I have to look incredibly normal for work. Like, I have to take out all this. So, and then, you know, I put on like a uniform. But it was just kind of fun to walk around and have everybody avoid me for the day. And that was really nice. Because normally you go into Walmart and you're like, oh, I need in this aisle. And you got to wait for 3 people to move. Someone's standing directly in front of the shit that you need. And the entire time, it's like, the one time I had a lady on the phone in front of me to where I needed to go, and then like she looked back and was like, and then immediately left the aisle. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm forever doing this. Anytime I have to go into a Walmart, I'm bringing this cloak. Look, I'm not gonna rep stuff people can't, like, you know, and this isn't sponsored, obviously. If you get a cloak brand cloak, just plain black, got a hood, got the best hood, got the Darth Maul hood. It's really great. You walk around in that, people will move out of your way in a Walmart aisle. Just pull it up over your head, wear a lot of black.
Their hooded ponchos are nice too.
Immediate vacation of any place that I needed to go into, immediately vacated every single time. I was like, this is the best trick. Man.
And you're just hidden in plain sight.
Oh yeah, I'm just walking around, just so fantastic. Anyway, we're going to move on to the game stream now because we're getting up on time. So I'll see you guys in a few minutes. I thank you all for joining me. We do this every week at 8 Central if you want to come back for the last book in the Miss Peregrine series. I had a great time. I'm glad you all joined me for this whole ride. If nothing else, you can say you read a book this year. Go ahead and mark that off in case you've forgotten or you haven't because you didn't want to leave the live before. When I turn the live off, remember, go mark it off on your story graph, on your book read, whatever, on your Goodreads, whatever you want to do. Check mark it. You accomplished something, and I'll see you guys here next week. But we're gonna move to the Discord, and if you don't know where the Discord is, it's a fun scavenger hunt, like a game. You're gonna have a real fun time figuring it out, because I'm not telling you how to get there. Where's the cat?
Minty.
I was just gonna have Minty say goodnight. Because nobody's seen Minty all day. She's been so good sleeping over there. Minty's gonna do the sign off from now on. Minty's better at it than I am. Minty?
There you go.
Do you have something nice to say to the public before we leave? Big stretch? Big stretch? Do you have some inspiring words for the public? Oh,
Good
that's
yawn.
so nice. What a nice sentiment. Thank you very much, Minty. How was Pond? Pond is good, sitting in the window, waiting for food, as always. Thank you guys, and I will see you guys next week.